Okay, this is Orlando Wilson, and what I want to talk about in this video, I want to answer a question. And somebody asked me, what's the most dangerous situation, dangerous environment to work in, etc. Most problematic environment. And I would say the most problematic environment to work in is when you're working around crowds of people. If you look on my blog, Truth Only Has a Few Friends, I've got an article up on there about personal security in crowds, security for journalists in crowds, etc. And I talk about what I'm going to talk about there, and I also highlight the incident of two British soldiers in Northern Ireland back in, I think, 1988, Corporals Howe and Corporals Woods, that drove into an IRA funeral and ended up getting killed. I also highlight there the incident of a reporter, Laura Logan, in Egypt, where she was snatched from a crowd, sexually assaulted, etc. So to me, crowds are dangerous environments. Let me check my notes a second. If you're working, and this is a difference between the commercial close protection world and the government close protection world. If you're in law enforcement, if you're in police, you're generally not going to be having to push through crowds. Even though there was an incident recently in Spain where the King of Spain was caught up in a crowd in Valencia, and again it was he ended up getting pelted with mud, etc., etc. This is where it's a challenging situation. Also, the presidential candidate in Brazil, how many years ago? I think a guy he ended up being president, Bolsonaro. I can't pronounce his name properly. He was going for a crowd up on people's shoulders when he was a candidate, and he ended up getting stabbed, even though he had how many security guys. When you're working in close proximity with people, it's very difficult to, well, working in crowds, it's very difficult to be aware of what's going on around you. And even if you're carrying weapons, it's very difficult to deploy weapons. Many years ago, I was working in one location in South Africa, a long time ago. And this job involved pushing my way through, well, it was a liquor store, getting the people out of the liquor store, the management out of the liquor store when they closed up. And again, I've got that, I detail that in one of my books, and the article that's detailed in is why I prefer cross-draw holsters. The issue is when you're working in crowds, it's if you're working armed or unarmed, it's very difficult to defend yourself because you can't see what's going on around you. And if people are right next to you, pushing up against you, they know you're armed. It can be very difficult to access your weapon. It can be very difficult to protect your weapon. So this is where you can be well armed, you can be carrying a firearm, etc. But if you're working in close proximity to other people, if you're working in a crowd, the chances of you being able to access your weapon and deploy your weapon if people are actively targeting you is going to be extremely difficult. The principles of that I always put out is you've got to make sure if you're working in crowds and you're working armed, then the firearm must be defended. People can access it. You must be able to access it, which is another problem, and you must be able to deploy it. This is where a lot of the conventional, especially the competition shooting techniques, holster drills, etc., just don't work. We got some videos up of the stuff we do, and again, read my articles, especially the article on cross-draw holsters, and it will highlight some of the issues of working in close proximity with people armed. I see people with long guns working in crowds or in close proximity with people, and to me it's ridiculous. I have another story for another time, reference somebody got jacked with a shotgun, and they were given the option, you either give up the shotgun or you're going to get chopped up. They done the wise thing and gave up the shotgun because that person knew there's no way they're going to be able to take on multiple people with the long gun at, we're talking a couple of feet range, right? So again, there's a lot of challenges when you're working up close with people. Let me check my notes. Self-defense. Okay. What do you need to take into consideration if you are with a client and you're going to be working in crowds? If it's a celebrity client, you know what, some celebrity clients want that type of thing. They want the attention, they want people to be around them, etc., etc. From a serious close protection perspective, you always want to try and avoid crowds. If it's identified that the client is going to a busy area, there's going to be a lot of crowds around, you need to make sure, well, if possible, avoid it, take alternative routes, etc. Even when you're driving, you don't want to be caught up in traffic. I remember working on, when I had a few things going on South Beach in Miami, and again, we had a few things going on there during holiday times. And you know what? You're far better off walking in that environment because the traffic was always jammed. And to me, if you're stuck in a car, being an armored car or whatever, you're sitting target. All somebody has to do to get the client or to get you out the car, cover it in gasoline, light it up. You got no choice but to get out of the car. Then you're walking into an ambush. So cars in busy areas, in crowded areas, you know what? You're gonna have major issues. So it's best off avoiding those issues. If the client is going into a crowded area, always make sure you know how to evacuate the client, where to get them to a safe area or get them back to your vehicle. And then you can evacuate the area. But again, you always want to be looking for the red flags that things are going to go bad pretty quickly. And again, watch the videos that's up on the article I've got on crowds on the blog, and that will show you some incidents, some nasty incidents, and how things can go wrong in crowds. So again, you've always got to make sure you got an evacuation route to a safe location, to your vehicle, and then you can get the hell out of the area. I remember I was doing something in Haiti after the earthquake, and things went bad for us there. It could have gone very bad for us there. And I think I've talked about this in other videos, articles, etc. And we were in one area, and I think I talk about this in a little bit more detail in the article I've got about security badges, etc. Things went bad. We were dealing with a group of people. We got cut off from our vehicles, etc. And when you're in fluidly developing situations, even though you're planning things, you could have planned things properly, it's very difficult to plan things when the situation is developing very quickly and you're not sure where you're going. I was working with journalists at the time, so they're looking for stories. We were in one location, there was an issue with a crowd, we went into another location, they got between us and our vehicles. And when I managed to get back to where I thought the vehicles were, the drivers had actually moved on to a location about 100 meters away. Why? They didn't want to be in that area because they knew it was a little bit hostile, and they was worried about aftershocks with the earthquake, and we was in an area with some walls and buildings. So again, from that perspective, you can plan everything, you can keep, even if things are fluid, you can brief people on what to do, where to be, etc. But in that case, we had Dominican drivers that were, to put it honest with you, fucking cowards, and they ended up more worried about their skin than even considering our skins. So they ended up getting the hell out of the area. That situation was resolved more due to initially escalation and de-escalation, and under, how can we put it, sympathizing with the locals and then talking our way out of the situation. But that was one situation that could have gone very bad for us. As far as use of force is concerned, if things had gone bad, you know what, realistically, I might have been able to hurt one, maybe two guys, but you know what, we would have got chopped up because we was outnumbered, we weren't armed, and even if we were armed, as they said, you mean by the time I deployed the weapon, I'd have got most probably chopped up anyway. So you got to be very careful in those situations and think about what you could do for self-defense in those situations. My advice to people, if you are going into those situations, and some things that can work for self-defense as a deterrent in those situations, are stuff like flares. The handheld flares that's used for signaling, etc, etc. If you light up a flare, that'll give you how many seconds, 30 seconds, a minute worth of flame, smoke, etc. And again, that's going to create distance. It's going to cause a little bit of chaos. That'll give you hopefully enough room to get back to your vehicle, get to a safe area. The other thing, smoke grenades or CS gas grenades. If you drop one of those in an area, you're going to cause chaos, etc. And chaos is good as long as you understand the chaos, because you can use that chaos to escape. So for me, if I was going into an area, going with a client into an area I know is going to be crowded, I know is going to be congested, I'm going to be thinking about trying to get hold of some handheld flares, and also maybe where legal, a CS grenade or just smoke grenades. You drop a smoke grenade, you cause chaos, you can then escape the situation. Let me check my notes. So again, to me, working in crowds or crowded areas is very, very dangerous. So you have to do your planning, plan properly, and also you have to be very fluid. If the situation goes bad, you have to be able to adapt to the situation. And as I said about those Dominican drivers, if you watch the Laura Logan video, initially they say, okay, we had guys there for security, etc. You know what, when the shit hit the fan, everybody ran away. So this is where, if you're going into a crowded situation, you need to make sure the people you're working with are trusted. And again, if things do go bad, they're not just going to run away, they're going to be there to help you evacuate, etc. But to me, it's all back down to, again, planning, preparation, and being able to think on your feet and being very, very fluid. And again, a lot of the times, what the book says, the conventional CP formations, etc., etc. If you're working in close proximity with other people, if you're working in crowds, you know what? If the bad guys are after you, you're just going to get cut up before anything happens. You're just going to get dropped. That's the reality of it. So you're better off avoiding those situations in the first place. All right. Little chat on working in crowded areas, working in crowds. Check out the article. I'll put it below in the comments. That's on our blog. And again, you got any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will get back to you in time. Follow us along on social media. Check out my books, which are up on Amazon. And as I say, if you've got any relevant questions, reach out and I will get back to you in time. In the meantime, be good, stay safe, and stay out of trouble.